everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Iris O'Carey. I am the current student body president here at Wichita State University.
And I'm Sophie Martins. I'm the current student body vice president at Wichita State University.
Today, we will be moderating, if you will, a town hall with Dr. Rick Muma and Provost Shirley Lefevre, as well as Vice President Terry Hall. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a couple questions, and we're looking forward to receiving these answers from our university leadership.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Do you want to start off with the first question?
Yes, I do. This is the first question for everyone, so feel free to answer it. If you could join an organization or start one at Wichita State, what would it be and why?
So you want me to start? Or
Yes.
Okay. So you almost forgot my name.
I did, but it did. I promise. It's not like that.
It was stage fright, right?
Yeah, it was. I was nervous.
So we were actually talking about this before we went live. And so I've thought about it even more since I was talking about this with my colleagues, and like to do community gardening, and Rick Case, first gentleman, is into that. So we would probably join the Green Group, which is in charge of the community garden on campus.
So I will go next. I love that, Rick. It's such a good fit for you guys. I think I've just been learning more about cricket lately, so I think that's what I would join. I'm not going to say I would be good at it, but I would love learning the game.
And I think I would like to start a pickleball sport club.
Big pickleball fan. You like?
I am. I love pickleball.
You like pickle?
All of our answers have
Changed
in the last few minutes.
Well, that's amazing.
I know, at least for me, to give some sort of insight into us, I'm outside of SGA. I'm in Pre-Law Student Association and Fairmont College Student Advisory Council, and I love those organizations. But all of our organizations on campus are amazing and incredibly unique, and I think it's a great thing that we have here at Wichita State. So we'll go into the next question. And the order you guys have going on right now, I think, is great, unless someone is really dying to answer the question first. Then you guys can do that. But our second question is, how is the university adapting to the Kansas Board of Regents looking into cutting certain programs? How are we changing that? Is there any updates with that? Just kind of looking into that.
Yeah, Shirley could provide an answer for that.
Sure. So we had 5 programs that were on that list. Those were the Women's Ethnicity Intersectional Studies was one, Philosophy, Geology, Physics, and Forensic Science. So when you think about those 5 programs, they all contribute a lot of student credit hours towards either general education or to other majors. And so that's really where we see the value in those programs, and are trying to communicate that value to the Board of Regents when we submit our action plans. So right now what we're doing is we're putting together the action plans for those degree programs. I will say that the WISE program just came back to, those faculty came back to us earlier this week, and they've kind of changed their direction on their proposal, their action plan a little bit. But so I'm not overly concerned with our programs because of the contributions that they are making. Just to dive a little bit deeper into the WISE program, what they're looking at right now is, instead of it being a standalone major, they're thinking it may make more sense to merge that program with another degree program in liberal arts and sciences. So that's where we're at.
That's awesome. So moving on to our next question, what improvements or expansions are planned for the university's infrastructure and facilities? So then I have like a couple sub-questions into that. Any updates on the current construction going on campus? Is Shocker Success Center, that's taking over Clinton Hall, going to be ready by the summer of 2024?
Well, I can go ahead and start, and then Terry and Shirley can add. But to answer your first question, or the second question, is the Shocker Success Center going to be ready by the fall? I think that was your question, or the summer?
Yes.
It is. It's on track. I believe the major portion of the facility will be done by the end of June, where there were some other areas like international education, our CTAC office, which is Title IX, and civil rights office. That will be done a little bit later, but this summer, later in the summer. So everything should be operational by the time the school starts. In terms of what we're doing across campus, you may know that we are working on a master plan that we do about every 10 years. This is something that we do in conjunction with working with the Board of Regents, and we just actually presented sort of the final draft of that particular document to the campus community and the community at large. Those big posters that kind of showed the transformation that we're proposing were displayed in the RSC a couple of weeks ago, and they've been moved now to the library in special collections in the basement area of the library, so you can go and look to see what we're thinking about. But we're trying to think about the university in terms of its future. How can we best utilize our resources? It's a very good possibility, if this plan is fully implemented, that we will be demolishing some of our older buildings and building new state-of-the-art facilities, opening up the campus, more green space and more of a connection to our innovation campus, where the campus is really moving towards. And so really exciting plan. Hopefully you will go online, just go to wichita.edu and Google master plan, and it'll take you to those documents if you want to look at it online. We're getting ready to break ground on a couple of projects. The Hub for Advanced Manufacturing Research, a new facility that is coming about through a grant that we received almost 2 years ago from the federal government to build a new, what we're calling a Hub for Advanced Manufacturing Research, to help small businesses adopt smart manufacturing and advanced manufacturing processes into their businesses. It'll provide more opportunities for students to work alongside staff who are working on that particular project, and that'll be built just east of Woolsey Hall. We are also going to break ground on a new biomedical campus in downtown Wichita with KU and WSU Tech. We now have all the funding solidified. The legislature has passed a bill that will finalize that funding for that project. So that project will break ground on May 8th, downtown Wichita. We're really excited about that, bringing together 3 different institutions and all the healthcare providers that we educate in new ways of learning and innovating and researching in the core of our city, be transformational for healthcare in our city and for patients in our community. So those are 2 big projects that we're getting ready to break ground. You'll see some other smaller projects that we break ground on the softball facility, indoor practice facility. We will start making improvements at the football stadium and transforming it into a soccer, state-of-the-art track and field stadium. That will start this summer. And then we are also finishing up a new addition to the Marcus Welcome Center, where the Shocker Career Accelerator will be located along with our admissions offices. And so a lot of exciting things coming for the benefit of students. Really excited about the Shocker Success Center opening up this fall to help move all those support services in one location for the benefit of student success.
I think in lieu of that, you had mentioned a little bit about demolition of some buildings. I currently am just curious to know, so Grace Wilkie is currently one of the oldest buildings on campus, if not the oldest, and it used to be a dormitory. Now it has several offices, from military and veterans to the Shocker Support Locker.
And advising for LAS.
And advising for LAS. Do we see in the future the demolition of that building, or is it still going to be up and running after everything is kind of moved out, but minus LAS for the Shocker Career Center?
Yeah, so it's not the oldest building on campus. This hall is the oldest building on campus. It's can't remember exactly the year it was built, in the 50s probably. It does have a lot of history to it, and named after a former dean of women at the university, Grace Wilkie. The Military Veterans Student Services Office, the Shocker Support Locker, those two offices will be moving to the Shocker Success Center. So they have brand new space that they're moving into. And then lots of other offices are moving to the Shocker Success Center. Will allow some space to open up in Grace Wilkie. So some offices that are currently in Brennan, for example, will be moving over there. In the master plan, you will see, yes, there are long-term plans for that building to be removed, but not before we find places for the current offices in Grace Wilkie. You know, what would be left primarily would be the LAS Advising Center. So we would have to find a solution there. But long-term, that building will not continue in its current configuration. Not sure what would happen with the name of Grace Wilkie and whether that would be attached to another facility, given the fact that Grace Wilkie is really important to our history, the person. So stay tuned on that, but not in the near future, but long-term, the building has a lot of deferred maintenance, and so it's fairly costly for us to continue to have that facility on campus. But if you look at the master plan, you'll see the options that we have that will help move some of those offices and other emphasis that are in that particular building to other facilities on campus.
And then I kind of want to add to this topic in regards to when we first saw the master plan being displayed in the RSC, which I thought was a wonderful idea. It was awesome to have so many students coming up to me and just asking for my feedback on it or their opinions on that kind of thing. And a constant topic was parking, just because certain parking lots may be getting moved around or we're expanding in certain areas. I'll give my own hot take. I don't think Wichita State has a parking problem. I think it's just our parking is far away from some of the main buildings that we go to. But I do think that what the master plan is showing is really important for the university. Could you just kind of speak to how parking may be affected or future plans with parking on campus?
Yeah, so where Grace Wilkie is currently situated, where the police station is, a parking office, there's a parking lot there. That's going to be, it's called for green space in that location. But there's also 3 additional parking garages that are part of the master plan. So we understand the issue with parking, and I agree. We have plenty of parking for students on campus. It's just that we don't always have enough parking where students want to park on a particular day and closest to the building. But the master plan does call for parking garages that are strategically placed close to high traffic areas, high pedestrian traffic areas. So I think as we move through that master plan process, and again, it's a framework. The last master plan called for more than 1 parking garage, and we only built 1. So it just really depends on how resources come together to help move some of this forward. But we understand the issue of parking. We understand there's always improvements needed. But I think if you look at the master plan, you can see that there's pretty good solutions for that.
Awesome. And then I'll move into our next question, which is how is the university support departments, offices, and students with the current bill regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start, and Shirley and Terry can chime in. So I think everybody understands and knows about the issue around DEI as it relates to the legislature and their interests. And I want everybody to know that WSU remains committed to helping all students be successful, regardless of their background. There's nothing in any bill that's currently before the legislature that prevents that. So we're going to continue to help support students however we can. And in our conversations with legislators, they agree that should be the goal as well. They're mainly focused around requirements for statements that support DEI or on applications or as we hire individuals or award financial aid. We don't really have anything like that at this institution, so we believe that we'll be okay in that aspect. And I've been working with our leadership team to make sure that everybody is apprised of what's going on, and we will continue to work towards a goal to advance all students, and we will continue to support students, and I think we'll see that be strengthened over time. And we want to make sure all of our students are successful and they go on to graduate and enter the workforce in their chosen career. And the only way that we know to do that is to make sure that we provide and prepare them for the ability to work in a global society. I don't see that changing in what we are currently doing and what we'll do in the future.
Awesome. Next question. Wichita State University is a rising Hispanic serving institution. Can you provide an update on the university's efforts and initiatives to support and enhance the experience of Hispanic students on campus?
So I can take that one. And I'll invite you to go to, we do have a website where our HSI strategic plan is posted. So if anyone wants to go to the website and look at that, it's just www.wichita.edu HSI. So, but just to dive into that, there are some specific things that are outlined in that strategic plan. But all of it really goes back to what the president just said. It's an effort to advance all students. And but some specific things, we launched a program called Somos Shockers, which means we are shockers in Spanish. But that group is really tasked with outreach in the community and in our public schools. So they're doing a lot to just meet with students, talk about what Wichita State is all about, trying to get those students on our campus. In my way of thinking, it's a process where we're just trying to demystify what a college education looks like and what resources are available to support students who want to pursue a higher education. We also launched for the first time a program called Herencia last summer, where we invited high school seniors to our campus, again, really to just sort of help them see who we are as an institution, what opportunities, programs, resources are available. And they actually live in the residence hall for that week, most of them, and just to try on college for a week and see if that's something that they want to pursue. Also, very recently, we joined a group called Delphine. That is a partnership with institutions of higher ed and research centers across Latin America. And we will be hosting a group of, I think it's 30 undergraduate students here on our campus this summer. Each one of those students has been matched to or paired with a WSU faculty member, and they'll spend 7 to 8 weeks here doing some research with that faculty member. Ultimately, our goal is to encourage those same students to come back to Wichita State for graduate studies in their future. But really, it's just trying to build relationships with institutions in Latin America and introduce students to Wichita State. We also created a new faculty and staff association called Latin Faculty and Staff Association. It's a place where we're trying to really show that, create a space for our faculty and staff to feel welcome and supported. We think that will help with our recruitment efforts as well for continuing to diversify our faculty and staff. We've joined a group called Excelencia. That's a nationwide group that is really targeted at helping institutions who are either HSIs or emerging HSIs to really lean into that word serving, understanding what it means to serve students and how we can amplify our student support services so that all of our students are successful. And then we're also members of HACU, which is the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. We actually, Dr. Hall, I think 3 years now, we've taken a group of students to that conference. And I think our students, to a person, come back really enriched by having had that opportunity. That particular organization provides a wealth of information about internships and career opportunities that lie ahead for students who graduate from colleges. So that's just a kind of a glimpse, but I hope everyone knows Dr. Sarah Mata. She's our executive director for HSI Strategies, and she's constantly trying to think about what's next, what do we need to do to ensure that all of our students are successful.
And Shirley, I didn't know if maybe you said this, but we've joined a couple of other organizations to help us connect with other institutions across the country to learn best practices, some things that will help us move forward. So,
yeah, I should have mentioned that. There's one called Presidents for Latino Student Success. Their acronym is P, the number 4, LSS. And as the president mentioned, it's a group of presidents from all over the U.S. that's really focusing on how to support Hispanic students.
President's Alliance, too, that we were meeting about earlier today, is another one that helps, just issues around undocumented DACA students and that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. Our next question is with the Radigan Student Center, or RSC is more commonly known, in need of significant renovations. How soon can students expect the center to be enhanced?
Gee, I'd like to answer that, please. So, this coming June, we will pay off the addition and the renovation that was started by student government in 2014, I think is when the construction began. And it's a beautiful, well, that's when it opened with the renovations, was 2014. So it's a beautiful facility. We know we need to get our roof replaced because it wasn't done when we did the renovation, and Kevin Conda's really good about reminding us that we need to get that done. One of the other issues that we hear from students is that the ballroom can't, though there is a divider, it's not the kind of divider that is soundproof. So you really can't do 2 different events upstairs in the ballroom, though it's dividable. So how do we replace that division so that the things can be soundproof? One of the other things we've talked about is the second floor that has such key resources for students isn't as welcoming as we would like it to be. And so the talk is, how do we take the end of the second floor that is south and make that into a center that would include ODI, SEAL, and student government into a really welcoming something that we'd want to get some feedback from students about what do we call that space, but to really make sure that it's open and welcoming. We haven't yet priced that out yet. So, we had hoped that it would be less than $2 million. And if it's less than $2 million, we could begin that work in a year. It might be up to $4 million depending on what we do. So that might take us a couple of years to get there. The other conversation we're having is another large event space that we have the CAC Theater, which is, seats about 450 to 500, which is, it's a reasonable space, but it's really outdated and it's not ADA compliant and it doesn't have nice usable restrooms. And so one of the things we've talked about a little bit longer down the road is getting the CAC Theater to really be a great theater that students would really like to have events in. But that's probably maybe 7 to 10 years, that maybe a little bit sooner than that, but it'll be a few more years down the line before we could get that one done.
And then I'll also add in, I think currently our wheat tower lights are being fixed. Some of the lights were out, and that's something that's currently happening. And then also looking into the IT software in all of the different rooms, just to
And you know, we were just talking yesterday about replacing some of the furniture and lounges. And so the hope might be that when students come back to school in the fall, that they'll see some new furniture in some of our spaces, especially on the second floor. And, you know, how do we cycle through some spaces and think differently about them? Because, you know, this is really truly the students' building, right? Paid for by student fees. And so how do we continue to make sure that it's warm and inviting to students in all aspects?
That's awesome. I wish I will be able to see it. That just gives me a reason to come back.
We can name a lounge after you, Doc. You know, Iris, when you want to. When you become a Dr. Okiri, we'll just name it after you. You can just pick your space.
I will take you up on that offer. Okay, so the next question is, this semester we saw a decline in enrollment. Can you elaborate on the deans, like the deans of schools, efforts to increase enrollment and the university as one?
Yeah, I'll start that Shirley about the details of it. Just want to let you know that it was just in one area, international students in the School of Computing, where we had that decline. And our other areas of campus actually came in pretty strong, particularly the undergraduate returning students. So we actually have seen gain in that. But I'll let Shirley talk about some of the things that we've been working on.
Thank you. And I appreciate this question because I always go back to our 3 priorities, the first of which is access and affordability. And so at Wichita State, we are really leaning into making sure that any student who wants to pursue a higher education has the opportunity to do that. So we really try to think very intentionally about what that means and what are the strategies that we can improve and just get better at. And so for recruitment, we've done a lot of work around recruitment, starting with being much more intentional about using our data to drive our decision making. So one of the first things we did was we asked every college to take a look at all of their graduate, really focusing in on that one area that the president mentioned, international graduate enrollment. But we asked every dean to take a look at every program, their graduate program in their college, and set enrollment goals for those. And now we have weekly data reports that the deans take a look at and look at the progress they're making towards those goals. We're doing that at the graduate level. We've been doing it at the undergraduate level with our strategic enrollment management team for years. I think President Muma actually set that infrastructure up. And so we're really taking a lot of what we've learned over the years from the undergraduate strategic enrollment management group and applying it over to our graduate programs. And then we're meeting weekly with not only our SIM group, our strategic enrollment management group, but we've also started meeting weekly with our graduate enrollment management team. And we're also meeting every other week with all of the graduate coordinators from across the university. So every graduate program has what we call a coordinator, or sometimes they're clustered. But so every college has usually 3 representatives in those biweekly meetings, as well as the deans. And we're looking at the data, we're looking at strategies, just really being very comprehensive in the way we're thinking about how we're recruiting students. From those conversations, we've implemented a few strategies. One was streamlining the application process. So the graduate school now we have 4 degree programs that are around data science, data analytics. Those are very popular among our international students. And so we've streamlined that process for applying into any of those 3 programs. They can apply for all 3 of those programs through one application. We've also waived the GRE requirement for admission to the graduate programs. And we've asked our graduate coordinators to be much more responsive in the time frame of reviewing those applications. So we've told graduate coordinators, we don't want any applications sitting for more than 7 days. You have to go in there and it's constantly reviewing those applications. we've also really worked hard at building relationships with international agents. A lot of our international students will work with an agent to know what universities they should apply for. And so we're really strengthening those relationships with our international agents from a number of countries. And then really those relationships are really paying off in increased numbers of applications to our degree programs. We started what we call a refer a friend program. So any of our current graduate students who refer a friend who then actually comes to Wichita State and enrolls, we're giving them it's a $500 towards that will go towards their tuition. So we're knocking that price off of their tuition, as well as the student who actually comes here will get that $500 rebate. I don't know if that's a good word for it or not.
That's for international students.
Correct. Yes, correct. And then we've just really ramped up our communication strategies. We're doing regular email campaigns. We're doing webinars or Zoom meetings where we're inviting our international students who've applied or started an application or voiced an interest. So we're hosting those Zoom meetings, and sometimes they're on Saturday mornings, sometimes they're at 3 a.m. We have to think about what time it is in the country where we're hosting those. But those have been really well attended as well. And then just on April 1st, we started allowing our graduate students to go ahead and register for classes, so even our international students. And so as students are registering for those classes, that's allowing our instructors of those classes to start reaching out and sending messages to the students, really targeting on that particular course and trying to get the students to be more informed about what the expectations for that course will be, and really starting to build that community within that course already. And then we have an intensive English program for students who come here and need to develop their English language skills first. We learned by looking at other institutions that our pricing for our intensive English class was really not competitive. So we reduced the price for that. And then we've also started to understand that not all of those students, some of those students come to us with sufficient language skills that they can go ahead and, after a month or so, can go ahead and get started in some other courses. So we call it our Intensive English +1 program, so they can enroll in at least one course at the same time they're completing intensive English. So that's a sampling of some of the things, and hopefully it illustrates that we're being very comprehensive and trying to think outside the box of how we can really do a better job of recruiting and retaining our international graduate students.
Perfect.
Amazing. Our next question is, how will the budget increases at the state level impact Wichita State?
Yeah, I'll take that. So many of you know that, and you all have on the SGI side have been working through your budget requests, and we have been doing the same thing, working with the Board of Regents, the governor, and the legislature. And you know, I'm happy to say that this year's state budget includes, that the legislature just passed today, includes items that are very positive for higher education in general and WSU more specifically. And so there is funding in the budget for next year to solidify the funding that we needed to break ground on the biomedical campus that we were expecting. Deferred maintenance, help us with some of our facility needs. But new in our funding this year is some new dollars to the university to help support applied learning experiences for students, particularly Pell-eligible students who are in disciplines where there's not a lot of paid applied learning experiences, especially in areas in the workforce that needs to help solidify a talent pipeline going forward. And we want to make sure that as many students as possible have at least one paid applied learning experience. So that's a significant amount of money. It's $5 million of ongoing dollars that will be able to help students not only get applied learning experiences, but resources along with that, which we feel like is a retention tool. So if the student is working an outside job, maybe they don't have to do that, and they can have this paid experience to help them in not only in that applied learning experience, but also help them with resources that they might need to continue in school. Some things that weren't as favorable to us, and that one of those was increasing overall employee pay. In the governor's budget, there's a 5% pool of dollars for all state agencies on the state general fund allocation of their budget, and that got cut to 2.5% in the final budget that was approved today. So that particular issue, along with revenue shortfalls that we have had because of declining enrollment in the school computing, is going to put a little bit more pressure on tuition increases or potential tuition increases beyond the level that we have been planning. So we're still shooting for anywhere between 3 and 4%, but we were hopeful that we would be getting more dollars to help increase state salaries or faculty and staff salaries supported by the state. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. There is some information in the budget that they are going to look at it one more time before they adjourn. So there is a possibility of dollars being added back. We'll have to see where that goes. The other thing that is putting a little bit of more stress on what we will eventually put forward in terms of our tuition increase is there was not any inflationary adjustment for just routine costs for the university. That was also not included in the final budget. So a lot more pluses and minuses, but some challenges that we need to work through. I met with Warner Groeling, who's the Vice President for Finance, and Shirley Fever, the Provost, yesterday, and we have a path forward that we're working on, and I think we'll be able to close the gap from what we were discussing about how to do that. So stay tuned for more information in that regard.
This is just, I know this, we know this, but can you kind of elaborate a little bit more onto what that process looks like in the May meeting at KBOR when you're going to defend the budget that you're wanting to propose to KBOR?
Yeah, so you all have approved your bill for your increases. We'll put that forward along with our tuition and basic student fees beyond the student fees that you all pay to the board in May for a first reading. It goes to the Fiscal Affairs and Audit Committee first, and you all will be participating in that along with Terry Paul and Warner Golding. So that happened in May. And that's kind of give a first look at what the regents think about our proposal. And then the second reading will happen in June, and that's when they would decide whether to approve. And in between May and June, there might be some modifications based on feedback. I've already started having conversations with the board. I had breakfast this morning with the chair of the board, John Rolfe, about your fee request, what we're thinking about. He gave me a lot of feedback. Overall, was positive and I think supportive, and I think we have good rationale. But he's one member of the board, and we need to keep that in mind. And we're going to be reaching out to other board members between now and the May meeting and discuss it more one-on-one so they can have a good understanding of what we're trying to do. And I want to thank you all for helping us through the student fee process. I think this year we had an open, transparent process, lots of good conversations, and I really appreciate that's what makes things better and moves forward our priorities at the university.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So moving on to the next. This is more like What if artificial intelligence is on the rise for taking over the world? What strategies is the university implementing to leverage AI technologies to enhance teaching, learning, and research experience for students and faculty?
I think Shirley's queued up for that one.
I love this question, because as an educator, you're always going to see emerging technologies and that change pedagogy. And so if you are not familiar with our Office of Instructional Resources, they're phenomenal. They always seem to be able to predict what the next big thing is going to be, and they're really great at putting things together to help faculty understand those, right? So the January ARC conference, so that's the Academic Resource Conference that the Office of Instructional Resources hosts every semester. Their January one had a focus on artificial intelligence. So they kind of took the participants, the faculty and graduate teaching assistants, through exercises where they actually used the ChatGPT and had conversations and demonstrations about how it can be used as an effective instructional tool. So that website, MRC website, really has a lot of really good resources for students and faculty, quite honestly. On that website, you'll see what's called the ChatGPT Boot Camp, and it has links to resources. LinkedIn Learning, we have a subscription to LinkedIn Learning so that all faculty can have access to that tool. But there are courses within LinkedIn Learning that teach faculty how to use that tool effectively in the classroom. That same Office of Instructional Resources also puts together a newsletter every month called Teaching Today, and they've had several editions of that newsletter that really focus on using AI in the classroom. And then several of our colleges too have hosted workshops, focused meetings within the colleges about how to use AI effectively in the classroom. So I would say there's a growing knowledge base across campus about what it is. And I have to admit, I had to learn what it was too. And but there's a growing awareness across campus about how to use it effectively. I think we've passed the hurdle of being afraid of it. I think, I'm kind of an optimist. And now we're kind of digging into how to use it effectively. So, actually, there's a workshop on the 18th that the Shocker Career Accelerator is hosting. That's called ChatGPT Secrets Revealed. So that's available for our students if you're interested in that.
All right, Sophie.
Okay, well, we'll move into our final question, which is how can students get involved in shaping the future direction of Wichita State University?
I think that sounds like a question for Dr. Hall to get us going, and then Shirley and I can chime in.
Well, so what I would say is, the best way for students to shape Wichita State University is to get involved, to find spaces and organizations that they want to participate in that not only enhances their own learning and development, but also then connects them to the university and frankly provides us some feedback about the student experience. And so, imagine the year the two of you have had and the kind of learning that I would hope took place for you and the others with you on student government, but also the great impact that you've had on this institution, some lasting impact that beyond your time, things will be different. These conversations that we had regarding student fees and that was so transparent really are going to bring about some changes that I think students are really going to benefit from in the fall. And, we want to make sure that credit is given to the O'Keefe Martin's administration to making some of those changes happening. But, the best way to make a difference is to speak up, to get involved, participate in your classes. You get more out of your experience the more you put in, and being an active participant is the way to really make a difference.
Well said, Dr.
Well,
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'll throw in a couple of thoughts. So when I talk with students at orientation, I talk about the 3 I's of how they can enhance their own student experience. And the first one is, the first I is involved, getting involved in different activities, organizations, even within their classes, to be an active participant in the classes. And then the second I is to be inquisitive, to ask questions inside the classroom, outside the classroom, wherever, because it's through those questions that not only do you learn, but other people around you are learning too. And then the fourth one is to be an influencer. And I know I don't need to define that term for you, but our student organizations, and you guys are amazing at being very open to starting new clubs and new organizations. And that's another way to kind of shape the future and leave your mark too. So.
And I'll just add to, there's so many things that are going on campus, so many opportunities. And here's an example. Nora O'Donnell was here a couple of weeks ago, part of our Barton Speaker Series presenter. And that whole series is meant to encourage students learning how to or think more about how they speak about particular issues that might be controversial, just different points of view, critical thinking, and those sorts of things, and understanding what it means to be in a democracy where we allow people to speak freely. And so she came and actually Sophie moderated the student session, and that was great. But one of the things that Nora said in her comments at the public event later in the day was she's a firm believer in you got to see it to believe it. And I think what she's saying there to all of you and to all of us is that, you got to experience things. You got to get into and lean into particular issues and people and programs and really engage around. And I'm a firm believer of that too. So that all gets back to the engagement piece and experiencing that. Nora O'Donnell, I know that a lot of students probably don't get their news through network television, but she made a really compelling case on the work that she does and the importance of that work for us all living in a free and civil society. And she was just like you all not too long ago and really took advantage of that herself. And it's just a good example of the kind of things that students could be more involved in, I think, and recognizing. I ran into a student after that who's actually from Paraguay, and she said, she came up to me, she says, I saw you at the Nora O'Donnell event. She goes, I had no idea who Nora O'Donnell was. I saw signs all over campus. It looked like she was important. She went to that. She found out who she was. She made all kinds of connections with people that were there from the community, people who are very prominent members of our community that she wouldn't have had that experience hadn't she not gone to it. So just keeping those kind of things in mind when you see things advertised, posted in your email, take advantage of those things. You never know what's going to happen. A door might open for you that you never expected.
So thank you. I kind of want to at least give a student experience with that. As someone who's grown up in Wichita, sometimes you forget that Wichita State is this amazing university, and it just kind of feels like almost constant to you. It doesn't really seem flashy to you until you get here and you realize everything what's going on here is just absolutely amazing. And I remember walking around with my mom on campus and her talking about this building, we're doing these amazing things. And this is top secret. That's why all the windows are blacked out. This is awesome. It's so cool. So when I got here, I instantly wanted to join in everything that I possibly could. And that has been my number one advice for any student coming to Wichita State of whatever sounds interesting or in my case, almost scary because I don't like talking in front of a lot of people. But I was like, I'm gonna join that group that talks in front of a bunch of people. It just really changes the person you are, and I think shapes who you're going to be in life. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, and I just add to that, Sophie. I know that some students have challenges because they're busy raising their families and they're working, and it's all they can do is just come to class and keep up on their homework. And so I get that. And so there's things that people can also access virtually online. But even those students, I would suggest just pick one thing a semester that is out of your comfort zone or in your interest zone or whatever, and get connected. And the last thing I'll just say about this is that if you're one of those students or any students, a good connection is always going to be one of your faculty members. We know from working with faculty, myself, faculty, all of us here, being a teaching faculty, we all know how important it is to develop good relationships with students, and those relationships are what actually contributes to most of the student success on our campus.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today on this live of us in this town hall. This is our last one, so I just want to go ahead and say thank you for being supportive and being with us through this journey, and like you said, being very transparent with us when issues arose or just about anything, and being personable. You guys did not have to do that, but you did, and you really took us in as your own, and I really appreciate that. I want to say signing off and being like, done with presidency, but I'm not. So again, thank you all for watching. Sophie, do you have anything else to say? Go Shops. Go Shops. Signing off as VP and President. Thank you.
Good weekend. Bye-bye.
You as well.
Bye. Take care.